So, all right. Okay, are we looking good, Steve?
Let's see. Yes, that's great.
All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started then. As if people join us, that's fine. We'll just let them in and catch up with the attendance later. I want to thank you all for joining us for the third and final planning meeting as part of the 5-year update to the Holt County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. I'm Amy. You guys know who I am by now, and I'm Steve is here to help tonight. As Marcus noticed, the third member of our team is missing. We lost our wonderful helper, Marissa. She has moved on to a job writing hazard mitigation plans for the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency. So she was done a week or so ago. And so Steve and I are rolling through finishing this up on our own. So real quick before we start on our PowerPoint, I just want to remind you about the importance of helping us collect in-kind match. We're trying to collect in-kind match to keep the county from having to pay cash match as their portion of the plan update cost. As of today, Holt County is at 74.98% of the match needed. I haven't received any timesheets since the end of June, so I'm hoping that there has been a whole bunch of time recorded, but just not turned into me yet. So we're going to go ahead and start our PowerPoint now. As always, if you can stay muted, that would help with the background noise. Feel free to unmute anytime you have a comment or question, you need us to slow down, repeat ourselves, whatever, or you can also type in the chat. Okay, so the purpose for tonight's meeting is to review purpose and requirements, which we've done. We'll discuss the public survey results for Holt County. We will discuss updating the mitigation strategy, hazard mitigation assistance grants, plan maintenance, and our next steps. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires local governments to adopt a natural hazard mitigation plan to maintain eligibility for FEMA hazard mitigation assistance funds. The plan update is for a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan covering the unincorporated county, participating incorporated cities, and public school districts. So there are 9 tasks to complete a plan update. Tasks 1 through 5 are complete. Tonight we'll work on developing a mitigation strategy. We'll review and adopt the plan. Our upcoming steps include reviewing and adopting the plan, keeping the plan current, and creating a safe and resilient community. Participating jurisdictions have requirements that they must achieve to be participants in the plan update. You all have done this. You've designated representatives to serve on the committee, and the committee has met 3 times, with tonight being our 3rd meeting as part of the planning process. Provide data for and assist in the development of the updated risk assessment that describes how various hazards impact your jurisdiction. Provide data to describe current capabilities. Develop and update mitigation actions, at least 1 is required, specific to your jurisdiction. Provide comments on plan drafts as requested. Inform the public, local officials, and other interested parties about the planning process and provide opportunities for them to comment on the plan and formally adopt the mitigation plan. So there's a chart, a lovely spreadsheet that we maintain so we can track the participation requirements. So that's what you see on the screen now, is kind of a condensed version of that chart. As of now, Fortescue and Oregon are the only jurisdictions that haven't completed their worksheet on the status of previous actions. Fortescue, as you can see on the chart, they haven't attended a meeting, haven't submitted a data collection questionnaire either. We've reached out many times, so as Marcus, they didn't participate in the current plan, and that's fine if that's what they choose. They don't have to participate, but until we have something from them in writing, we will keep bugging them, trying to get what we need so they are a plan participant. As you can tell by the chart, Corning has opted out. They have decided not to participate in this update. And we will reach back out to Oregon to try to get their status of previous actions. So does anybody have any questions, or do we have anything recorded? Does everything look okay on this chart?
Amy,
Yes.
on Oregon's status of previous actions, I will get with Tiffany tomorrow
Okay.
because I think in her mind, she thinks she's completed everything.
Okay. All right.
When I asked her, she said, yeah, we're all done. So maybe
Okay.
she's not aware of that. And if that's the case, I'll try to set up a Zoom with you and her and I.
Okay.
And maybe try to get that completed.
All right. And if you need me to send you and send her the email that went out with the previous action spreadsheet, I get that.
Yeah, go ahead and resend it to us, and I'll call her first thing in the morning. But I think in her mind she thinks maybe she's all done. So
Okay.
that could just be a misunderstanding there. But
yeah, or maybe she sent it and it got lost between.
That could be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Marcus. Anything
Sure.
else? All right. So public survey results. We've closed the survey. 31 Holt County residents participated, so that's pretty good. One of the questions that was asked is, we listed the hazards that are in the plan, and we asked people to indicate their opinion on the likelihood for each hazard to impact your jurisdiction. So just literally their town or their school district or the county. And then they rate that as unlikely, occasional, likely, or highly likely. And you can kind of see the results there. Not a lot of concern about dam failure and earthquake. A little more concern on severe thunderstorms, severe winter weather, tornadoes, and extreme temperature. And again, feel free to unmute if anytime you have a comment. The next question that we asked was to indicate their opinion on the potential magnitude of the same hazards on their impact to their jurisdiction. So there's a lot of critical responses for extreme temperature, severe thunderstorms, severe winter weather, drought, tornadoes. Those seem to be where a lot of the critical responses were. Tornadoes and levee failure and flooding had the more catastrophic responses, which makes sense. So, all right, so updating the mitigation strategy. As a reminder, goals are used to describe what you want to accomplish with the hazard mitigation plan. On the other hand, actions are specific activities you will do to accomplish these goals. Plan goals. The goals listed on this slide were reviewed during the last meeting. It was agreed upon that these goals would not be revised. So goal 1, to protect the lives, property, and livelihoods of all citizens in the present and future. Goal 2, to ensure continued operation of government and emergency functions in a disaster for the present and future. Mitigation actions are a very crucial part to the hazard mitigation plan. By implementing specific actions that are aimed at reducing damage from a disaster, communities are likely to recover faster as well as experience less loss. Mitigation actions have long-term cumulative benefits that can greatly increase the preparedness of your community for a disaster. Some actions are low cost and easy to implement. Others require funding through grants. Not all actions are eligible for FEMA grants, but there are many opportunities to obtain funding. These actions need to be relevant to your jurisdiction and must focus on mitigation, not response. The plan is not about responding to a disaster. The plan is about reducing loss from one. Updating and developing mitigation actions. In the last meeting we had, jurisdictions filled out action status worksheets. These forms help us figure out what actions are working for your community and which ones are not. FEMA will not approve the hazard mitigation plan without these. So please get those turned in if you have not. You can reach out to Steve or me if you have any questions. Next, we will create new actions. These new actions need to meet SMART standards, meaning that they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Vague actions will not be accepted in the plan. New actions can be created by using resources from FEMA, problem statements from the risk assessment, guidance from grants, and from surveys sent out to communities. So this chart has information about the previous actions from the current plan. At meeting 2, communities were instructed to complete action status worksheets. This table summarizes the number of actions in each status: completed, deleted, continue in progress, etc., from each jurisdiction. So as you can see there, we have all the jurisdictions listed and the schools. You can tell we've recorded what actions, previous actions have been completed, which ones you guys chose to keep that haven't been started on, keep that are ongoing, keep and modify, delete, or then the ones we haven't heard from. Chapter 4 of the Hazard Mitigation Plan will include all continuing and new actions. The completed or deleted actions will be included in a table in the appendix. Jurisdictions with actions marked as status not reported need to return their worksheets to Steve or myself. And if you need a new document emailed to you, please let us know. All right, and now I am going to turn the slide over to Steve, and he will take us through the next part of the presentation. Are you ready, Steve?
I am ready. And does that look good, Amy?
Yes.
Okay. Just to make sure we're showing the right thing here. So the risk assessment was completed, been posted, and was up on the website for people to review and look at a little bit to see what the data says about these natural hazards that occur in Holt County. The list there shown is been approved at a previous meeting that we held. They're based on the hazards listed in the state of Missouri's plan, and they include everything of the natural hazards that the state has in their plan, except we do not have any sinkholes listed for Holt County. So what we're going to do now is go through each of the hazards and try to pull out a little bit from the problem statements that were made from the risk assessment, from the data that was collected there, and then compare it with the actions that were in the previous plan that have been returned by jurisdictions saying that they should be continued in this update. So for flooding, some of the ideas that came up were perhaps there could be improvements made to the city's storm drain systems to help with flash flood situations, culvert sizing on county roads and in streets and so forth. And a lot of the flooding has to deal with levee failure and problems with the levee along the Missouri River. So we'll be talking about that hazard later. So, but it does relate, of course, to flooding. Okay, so don't be too worried by these next two slides. I mean, we do have a lot of actions in the plan. When we first wrote these plans, I wasn't in on the original plan writing, but they've been updated at least once or twice now. And I don't know, sometimes I think we thought the more actions we put in there, the better the plan would be, but we may have a few more than we need. But anyway, these are the ones that were return to continue. And there were the two goals in the plan. The first goal has to do with protecting the lives and the property of the county. So these goals that are listed here all are related somewhat to flooding. I have highlighted a couple of them, 3 of them, I guess it is, that I think kind of address the things that we talked about in the risk assessment. The rest of them have to do with warning and education and some of the other things that are very important, but these are more the nuts and bolts actions that need to be taken, or so we think. Anyway, the first one's there about the warning system to alert citizens in the flood-prone areas. And that was one that we have heard that needs to be continued in the new update. Also, we need to continue to monitor any National Flood Insurance Program requirements and so forth, so that we'll stay in compliance with that program. And then down here, 141, the new maps have been coming out that they've been updating, the digital maps, which have a lot more information on them and should help with a little bit more with planning. Those are starting to become available. And so those are another thing that we want to continue to utilize in this upcoming plan. Now on goal 2, that has more to do with keeping the government, the different jurisdictions functioning when there is a disaster. I mean, it doesn't do any good to have plans if people can't communicate with each other and so forth. So we do have some actions in there that we noted. The second one there, 212, monitor the storm drains. So we do have an action in there about the storm drains. So we want to continue that one. Last update we put in there about the road elevation and culvert sizing. So we want to continue to put that one into the update of the plan. The rest of these are not, they're certainly still important and worth keeping in the plan, but and they will be, what happens is that they apply to numerous hazards, so they'll show up on other hazards as we go through. What we want to be thinking about, are there any gaps? Are there any other actions that we need to write up for this update to the plan? You can certainly put ideas in the chat. You can interrupt at any time you need to with some ideas, and also give those to Amy or I, so we can get those for consideration in the plan update. But I'm going to continue to move on to the different hazards, so we won't be here all night. Second hazard is levee failure. We've had the catastrophic levee failures 2 or 3 times here just in the last few years. So some options that have been discussed are fortification of the existing levees, additional levees, and there is some work that's been going on after this latest round of failure that are addressing some of those issues, increasing the culvert sizing, road elevation, cooperation with the railroad and other entities, maybe with MoDOT, to make sure that that we're not working against each other, directing the water one way and it's causing trouble for somebody else. The other thing to think about in there is cooperation with the jurisdictions that lie further up on the Missouri River, that we're keeping some kind of plan going there with them. So the actions that we have in the plan for levee failure is to continue to work with the Army Corps to make sure that we've got the best things going on with the levees that we do have. We also still have in there about working with data that's available from different sources there to make sure that we keep an accurate data set of that information. We also talked about the road elevation in the previous one, and that affects levees as well. Again, consider any gaps and think about new actions that would work for levee failure. Next hazard is dam failure. We do have some high hazard dams in the county that do not have emergency action plans written up for them. They're not legally required to have them, but it would be nice to look at that. There's no routine inspection of dams. There's no regulations requiring that. And we have some unsatisfaction with the information that's available on those high hazard dams that are up the Missouri River from us. You know, how much water can we expect? You know, if there would be a catastrophic failure, how much of a warning would we have for our residents? So we'd like to do something about getting more information from those entities that have the knowledge about those structures. So for dam failure, we do have the one, or at least one that I've highlighted here about dam failure, is to get a database about the county dams. I think this is one that's continuing because that hasn't been done yet. We do have the information that's provided from the National Inventory of Dams, but that's about it. And again, we want to continue to monitor records and so forth. So if you want to put any new actions in there concerning cooperation agreements or some kind of committee or some kind of someone to look into information about those dams that are upstream or something, that would be a possibility of writing some kind of action for that we could include in this update to the plan. Next is earthquake. Many bridges and overpasses in Holt County are located in those liquefaction zones of the Missouri River bottom ground. They're more susceptible to shaking if there would be any kind of earthquake activity. Also, buildings that were built, especially before 1940 or so, seem to be at greater risk, and especially if they're located in those zones. We don't really have any action specifically geared at earthquake. Need to double check to make sure that's okay with SEMA. We may have to come up with one to satisfy a requirement that you have an action for each one, but maybe one of these that are more general will meet that. We'll have to check that out. Drought is the next hazard in the plan. Main thing that came out, since you know, drought's another one of those natural hazards kind of beyond what you can do anything about as far as preparing for it, other than having the water system maybe interconnected so that if one system gives out, you can rely on the hospitality of others to help you get through it if they've still got water supply. So we don't have any for drought specific, any actions specifically for drought. Do down here at the bottom of this slide have a couple of suggestions. These aren't written in the smart language that Amy was talking about for goals that SEMA would like them to be, but again, they're kind of rough drafts that could be worked out if someone would want to adopt or think that it would be a good action to have in the plan for their jurisdiction or for the county. One would be to develop an ordinance to restrict the use of public water during drought times for those non-essential activities. And the other would be to establish agreements for secondary water sources. And I'm sure some of those are probably occurring, but it wouldn't hurt to have it written into the plan. Extreme temperatures seem to be becoming more common, to have extreme cold and extreme heat. Most of the communities anymore don't have their own electrical company source. They rely on the larger being part of the grid. So all you can do is work with your those companies to ensure that they're capable of providing service, and to increase, then secondly, to increase your generator capacity and backup systems for your communities. We do have in the plan a couple of actions. One, just to identify the populations that are most susceptible, the older and younger persons in our communities. Have a plan to contact those or to check on those individuals. And then we do have some other ones that are related to extreme temperature that are also work for other hazards as well. Those about, the critical facilities, making sure that they have power backup plans, and the acquisition of high capacity generators for the utilities like sewer and water, and also for smaller generators for those critical facilities like shelters, rest homes, and nursing homes, whatever. Your healthcare centers usually have already made some plans there, but it's good to make sure everything's covered there. And that's, of course, you need to be able to be sure that your police and fire and your government officials have power to maintain their communication. Again, be thinking about those gaps, anything that you guys see. Again, I'm not giving you a lot of time to read through those, but these are the ones that have been returned, and they are part of the plan that's already out there. So they are available for you to look through and think about and give us feedback later. Severe thunderstorms coming up in the risk assessment. Concerns about safe rooms for all the schools in the county, shelter for those without basements or mobile home residents, and what about sheltering for when you have large event situations, public parks, and so forth. Already in the plan, we had an action about the weather spotter training program. A lot of our warnings now are coming from, I guess, more advanced technology. The radar and so forth has been, I guess, improved. So they seem like they're being able to give us better, earlier warnings, but it always is helpful to have trained spotters that can know the difference between debris cloud and a funnel cloud. And down here at the bottom, we already had in place, we put in the last update about the storm shelter. About schools, we do not have any actions in the plan about other renovations and so forth, like restroom facilities at parks, or sometimes you can, if you do a renovation on them, you can make them safe. I think down at Camp Geiger, for an example, the Boy Scout camp had a project where they made, I believe it was, the restrooms facilities safe rooms, so there's a place that they can go if they're caught out there in tornado situations. So if you are building new buildings or renovating existing structures, consider maybe seeing if you can get a grant to help you with that project, to go ahead and make it so it's safe to stand up to severe thunderstorm or tornado situations. The winter weather hazard is usually more secondary effects like the weather causes power outages and the road conditions, which makes it hard to deliver emergency services. So in order to do that, we need to educate the public. And again, we had talked about this one again about making sure that the critical facilities are covered. Again, the generator situation. So these aren't specific maybe to severe winter weather, but they do meet that hazard. So you can think about that. Again, if you have any other ideas that you think would help mitigate severe winter weather, shoot them our way, please. Tornadoes. This is a little bit of repeat on the severe thunderstorms because tornadoes often come out of the thunderstorms. There's been a lot of improvements to the warning systems. We need to be sure that our communities and county continue to update their systems so that we have the best available earliest warnings we can have. And again, safe rooms availability, you know, you don't need them till you do, and you don't want to have hindsight on something like that. If there is the opportunity to do something about that, we should, you know, take advantage of it. So we already had in there last time about the safe rooms. I think I talked about that on the thunderstorms. So I talked about, you know, maybe incorporating the safe room standards in the design of new or renovated projects of public buildings for your jurisdiction. So that's a suggested action that you might want to consider for adoption into the plan. Our last natural hazard in the plan is wildfire. Again, one of those things we don't think about as much here compared to what we hear about in the western part of the country, but they do occur. There are several acres burned every year, but fortunately we don't usually have residences affected by that. I think it was brought up somewhere that maybe the county doesn't have the authority at the present time to issue burning bans or warnings. Need to think about that and also consider protocol for maybe deciding that, you know, you should issue the warnings. The Weather Service tries to let people know, but it wouldn't hurt to hit them with those means of communication that our jurisdictions already have. So we've got the warning siren system that could be used for wildfires. So it's not really specifically wildfires. So if we do have to come up with an action that's specific just to wildfires, you could consider, you know, establishing some kind of ordinance that you could invoke a fire ban during extreme situations, or form a policy about alerting the social media, local media sources on those red flag days when the winds are high and the risk of fire because of dryness and situation is likely. Again, think about those gaps in that plan there. Again, I really hate that we have to rush through this, but at the same time, I don't want to have to read everything to everybody. I mean, you're capable of doing that, and I've already thought about that. So just get back to us with any ideas that we're missing that are obvious to you and somehow we're not thinking about them. So an additional resource to get ideas on those actions are in this book from FEMA. I think we're due for a little update on that, and they might actually be, there might have been an update. We might have an older slide than is available here. Here's the address for that. So again, I think that kind of winds up my portion of it on what we have in the plan now and some ideas of what you might want to put on based on what I saw from gathering data about the risk. I'm now going to turn it back over to Amy, if I can figure out how to do that. For some reason, I've got the slides kind of deleted, or got my thing. There it is. Here you go, Amy.
Thank you. I dropped the link to that mitigation management guide in the chat in case any of you are interested in that. Does anybody have any questions or comments about maybe some gaps you've thought of while Steve was going through his slides? Okay, we're gonna keep going then. So up next is another chart from the public survey that was open through June. So this one asked people to check any projects that they think would be a benefit for their jurisdiction that may possibly be paid for using FEMA hazard mitigation assistance grants. The top response was new tornado safe room construction. That was followed closely by minor localized flood reduction projects, including stormwater management or localized flood control projects, and structural retrofitting of existing buildings to add a tornado safe room. So is there anything there, looking at these responses, are you guys surprised? Is that kind of what you would expect? It seems like tornado safe rooms has come up several times tonight. So maybe that's something that we need to dig a little deeper into. But if anybody has any comments, feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat. Okay, moving on to mitigation action plans. What's on the screen in front of you now is an example of an action worksheet. If you filled out the action item assessment, then some of the information you provided will already be on the worksheet. The items in the red box are your responsibility to fill out. This worksheet is used to get information on how action items will be implemented, who is responsible for implementing the action, how will the community obtain funding for this action, when will the action be completed, etc. All these questions will be answered through this worksheet. It is our goal to send out these worksheets to the jurisdictions, including school districts, this week. Instructions will be provided and areas that you need to fill out will be highlighted. The information on the action worksheet must be included in the portal for all continuing and new actions. Plan maintenance. Hazard mitigation plans must be updated every 5 years per requirements set by FEMA. The maintenance process must be included in writing to ensure that the mitigation plan does not become outdated. The writing process includes who will be in charge of updating the plan, how it will be updated, and when the process of writing the update will begin. This section also includes how the public will be involved in the maintenance of the plan and how mitigation action items will be incorporated into other planning mechanisms. Planning mechanisms can include emergency management plans, local legislation, local comprehensive plans, building codes, community rating system, and floodplain management plans. Now is the time to decide the who, how, and when. In the current plan, it was decided that the Mitigation Planning Committee will meet annually and after a state or federally declared hazard event to monitor progress and update the mitigation strategy. The Holt County Emergency Management Director will be responsible for initiating the plan reviews and will invite the members of the Mitigation Planning Committee to the meeting. Additionally, the plan will continue to be updated every 5 years in coordination with standards set by SEMA and FEMA. If there are changes you would like to have made to this, please say so now by unmuting or typing in the chat. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so we will keep it the same in the plan update that we are working on. Next,
Amy,
yes,
so can you go back to that slide?
I sure can.
How will the public be involved in plan maintenance process? What is their involvement?
Well, what was established last time in the plan that's current, so 5 years ago, I mean, that's what we're getting to next. The next slide is about public involvement.
Okay, because if you open that up to all the public, you're going to have a lot of different ideas.
Right. Well, these
Yeah.
meetings are public meetings.
Right.
But anyway, let's go on to the next slide,
Okay.
and then we can come back if we need to. Okay, so next is to decide how the public will be involved in the plan maintenance process. The current plan states that information about the annual reviews will be posted in the local newspapers, as well as on the Holt County website, following each annual review of the mitigation plan. When the committee reconvenes for the 5-year update, it will coordinate with all stakeholders participating in the planning process. Public notice will be posted and public participation will be actively solicited at minimum through available website postings and press releases to local media outlets, primarily the newspapers. If there are changes you would like to have made to this, please say so now and we can have that discussion. You may unmute or type in the chat.
I guess my question would be, if you get a lot of, different ideas and planning strategies, how are we going to decide?
Well, I guess my question back would be, have you guys had any of these annual review meetings in this last 5 years?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so then it's just really wording to satisfy SEMA and FEMA is kind of what it sounds like at this point. Steve, do you know, has this come up in the past with these plan updates?
Last update was the first time that they were more specific on, putting in these specific things that were going to happen. And again, it's probably fell through the cracks. It's supposed to be an annual review. I know some counties, they just rely on it being on the agenda to once a year review the plan, and so forth. But again, it's just, we're supposed to do this and it would be good if we do. I don't know. We usually have trouble getting public's input. I mean, it might be that you get too many ideas, but my experience has been that we don't get enough ideas from the public. So I think it will be okay, but we probably need to follow through and try to do this review.
Yeah, and I was just thinking worst case scenario. I was thinking like those safe rooms. If you had a community, that wanted to know why they don't have one and what are we doing to work towards that, they don't understand maybe the financial situation or how those have to be, approved structure-wise by FEMA and the cost involved. So there's a lot to it that if we review those plans and anyone is able to participate, that's all I was thinking. Maybe they won't even,
Right.
I just wondered, it may be hard if you had a few that were pretty adamant on having their way or wanting a certain thing, how you would handle that situation. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have the funding to do those things. And it does, I mean, if they approve it, they'll provide some money, but it's not paying for the whole thing. You still have expense, locally to come up with. So, yeah.
I mean, and I think, the other thing to think about is you don't have to have all the answers right, now. If somebody has a question, well, they can contact the regional council for funding, might be the response, for help with funds, or, contact FEMA about the safe room requirements. You don't have to really commit to anything. You can just kind of point them on another path or redirect their questioning, I guess. So if you can think about it, just get back to Steve or I probably by the end of the week if you want to make any changes to it. Does that sound okay? And maybe that's a conversation, Marcus, you need to have with the commissioners if you want to, whatever you think there.
Yeah, I may be overthinking it. I was just thinking though, if you had an individual too that had an agenda and wanted wanted something done, that
Sure.
how we would handle that.
Okay. Well, is there anybody else have any comments or thoughts there? Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and keep moving then, if that's okay. So next, the Mitigation Planning Committee must decide how the mitigation strategy will be incorporated into other planning mechanisms. In the current plan, it states that where possible, plan participants, including school and special districts, will use existing plans and/or programs to implement hazard mitigation actions. Based on the capability assessments of the participating jurisdictions, communities in Holt County will continue to plan and implement programs to reduce losses to life and property from hazards. If there are changes you would like to have made to this, please say so now by unmuting or typing in the chat. All right. So completed action forms. After this meeting, we will ask that you please go through action worksheets to update information on the mitigation action items. Use resources in your district to collect information. This may be done by contacting other departments or organizations. When the worksheets are completed, please email them to Steve or me or both. And we would like to have these back by Monday, August 9th. Here's a list of hazard mitigation assistance grants offered by FEMA. These grants have been discussed in previous meetings. For more information on these grants, please visit the FEMA website, or you may contact Heidi Carver, State Hazard Mitigation Officer in Jefferson City. These grants can be used to help implement and complete mitigation actions in your community. Other funding resources. Aside from FEMA grants, there are other sources of funding that can be used to implement mitigation actions. Some sources include USDA. They have rural development grants and emergency watershed protection program. The U.S. Department of Commerce has public works and economic development facilities assistance. U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, they have community development block grants. We administer and write a lot of those here at the Regional Council. And then the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they have money for studies and other projects. Okay, comment periods. So once we get the draft of the plan, there will be 2 comment periods. Basically, the month of September is a 30-day comment period. The first 2 weeks are for the committee. So you will receive an email from me letting you know when that draft is posted to the Regional Council website with a link on how you get to it. We would ask that you review the plan. I know it's a lot of pages, it's very long and maybe a little monotonous. If you can at least kind of skim through it, that would be great. It's another opportunity to collect some in-kind match. So you will ask that you fill out a timesheet when you do that, and then email back any comments that you have. And then a public comment period will be September 5th. We'll start, we'll start around September 15th. The plan, of course, will still be posted on the Regional Council website. And we have press releases that we will send out to the county's newspapers, letting the public know about this opportunity to comment. So does anybody have any questions on the comment periods and how those work? All right. Homework and next steps. Adoption resolutions will be emailed. You're going to have a lot of emails from us this week. Adoption resolutions will be emailed out by the end of the week. These will need to be completed, and we will ask that you return those by Monday, September 14th. School districts and local governing bodies are all required to complete this task to be plan participants, and we must have all of the adoption resolutions signed and returned before we can submit the draft of the first draft to SEMA. So again, I jumped ahead. August 9th, we would like your action forms back to the Regional Council. September is when we would like your adoption resolutions returned. We want to give you a chance to see the plan before we ask you to sign a document saying you adopt it. So September 14th for that. The comment period for the committee, that's you all, September 1st through 15th. The final public comment period, September 15th through the 30th. And by October 14th, but hopefully a little bit earlier, we will submit the plan to SEMA. They will respond to us if there are any concerns, questions, changes that we need to make. And then once they approve it on their end, they forward it on to FEMA, and we anticipate FEMA's approval by March of 2022. So, any questions? No questions? We have just done such a good job, you don't even have any questions. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening, and you're planning. Yep.
I have a question, sorry.
You go right ahead. What is your question?
On our in-kind match,
Yes.
what is our goal? What do we need to get to? 100%?
Yep, 100%.
And we're at what, 70, what?
74.98.
All right, well, I've got some more time to send you. Have you heard any back from the Ready in 3? I've handed out a lot of that literature and told, those stakeholders to pass those out, keep track of their time, get that time.
Nope, I haven't received anything. Like I said, the last sheets I received were in June, and I thought maybe they were sending all that to you. So, but no, I think.
I'll get a hold of everybody and kind of remind them.
Okay, and of course tonight's meeting counts, but we would like to be at 100% and not have to come down to the wire on including time from reviewing in the public comment period and stuff like that. So, if you have any public events, what's worked really well for Worth County is they have volunteers at the food bank, at the health office, at little kid baseball games, rodeos, all that stuff, handing out information, and that the volunteers' time counts towards the in-kind match. So anyway, any other questions? No? If not, then thank you all for joining us and for being a part of this planning process. Please don't forget to fill out your timesheet for tonight and email that to me. We will be sending out a recap of tonight's meeting within the next day or two. That will include the link, the Zoom recording, the PowerPoint slides, and more. So be on the lookout for that email, action worksheets, and adoption resolutions, all coming at you from us this week.
Are you going to put those links in there too, Amy?
Yes, these two, the links over that are in the chat.
Yeah.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
So anyway, Steve and I will stick around here for a few minutes in case anyone has any questions or wants to chat with us about anything we've talked about tonight. Otherwise, you all are free to go, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.